Hey everyone, John with Roadkill Incorporated here. So, the more casual, let's just turn the camera on type video I made a couple weeks ago did pretty well, considering it was my first video in months. So, today I'm just going to do that again. But the video I did last week about being kicked off Amazon didn't do so well, so that tells me people aren't really into serious activism type issues. I think those topics usually see a dip in viewership. They're more like going to school than being entertained. That's fine though, I have plenty more retro videos worth of material to get to, believe me. Today, coming in the door, we have Amiga 1000s, a Commodore 128D, a Dreamwriter portable computer repair, and a really weird little switch box that lets you share disk drives and printers on 8-bit Commodores, the VIC-Switch. Anyway, hope you like it. So I'm a massive Amiga fan, and I just can't help buying more when the price is right. I came across these two 1000s for $200. They were tested for a power light, but nothing else. Typically these go for $200 to $300 each, so even if they're dead, this was a great buy. And before you ask, no, they don't have keyboards, of course, because Amiga 1000 keyboards go for $200 to $300 by themselves. They're some of the most expensive keyboards out there. So the 1000s arrived, and predictably, even though I told the seller not to, they're stacked on one another instead of side by side. This is bad because when the box is dropped, one piles into the other, and when you have plastic this old and brittle, it's just not pretty. I mean, it's idiot-level physics that you'd think everyone would inherently understand, but clearly not. Luckily, though, no more damage happened than they had already. I found this huge gash, and I thought for sure it was shipping damage and I was going to get that one free, but zooming in on the pictures, turns out it was already there. It wasn't highlighted like it should have been. In the picture, it looks like it might just be a smudge. It's the kind of thing you should let the buyer know about, but whatever, I don't know. I don't feel like fighting with the seller today. That can ruin a whole afternoon and turn me into a very unpleasant person. So, condition is not great. Clearly, they've both been opened. Hard to say why, but the first thing I want to do is A, power test them again, and B, determine if they get video and show a kickstart prompt. If they get video, the resale value is basically doubled. The 1000 has color composite output, which is really nice. You don't need to mess with RGB, and I can use this trusty LCD here. And the power connector is annoyingly receded, so you have to kind of feel your way under there. But here we go, Amiga number 1. They do take a long time to wake up. Amiga 1000s are weird. Commodore hadn't finished the OS when they shipped, so they didn't put the BIOS in ROM because they figured they'd be upgrading it soon. So 1000s have sort of a two-part boot process. You have Kickstart, which is roughly like BIOS, and then Workbench, which is the Windowsy type operating system. So when a 1000 powers on, it's going to ask for a Kickstart disk, and when you give it that and it loads Kickstart, then it will ask for the Workbench disk and boot into the OS. So very cool. It's a working machine. You can see it asked for Kickstart and then Workbench and went right into the OS. If by chance you power on a 1000 and it asks for Workbench right off, that means it has a third-party add-on internally that has the Kickstart and ROM. And congratulations, because that means your 1000 is worth more with one of those. But yeah, all this Kickstart nonsense is a good reason to buy a 500 or any other Amiga instead of a 1000, since they have Kickstart and ROM and you don't have to deal with this. Also, newer Amigas have at least 512K on the board and are easily expandable to more, whereas 1000s only have 256 on the board, and they require this silly card on the front to get up to 512K, and then going beyond 512 is much harder than with newer Amigas. You have to open it up and put something inside, or connect something to the bus slot on the right. So unless you're a true 1000 fanatic, just buy a 500. Okay, so the first one's a solid machine. That's great news. It'll sell for $300 to $400 as a tested working Amiga with a functioning disk drive. So let's try number 2. And wow, got the Kickstart prompt as well. Good news. This disk is not going in easily. I think it has to do with how badly the case was put on here. And yeah, it's rejecting the known good Kickstart disk. So the drive could be dirty, but we'll have to open it up to see what's going on. Amazing how reckless someone was putting this case on. And okay, so it's off. I don't see anything too crazy inside. The disk seems to go in mechanically well, so I don't think there's a lubrication issue. I'm going to go ahead and clean the read-write head with a Q-tip and alcohol because it's probably covered in 30 years of dust. And so we'll try booting up again, And wow, the drive is clicking away now and it's working. That's often the case. Just clean the heads, sometimes lubricate the moving parts, and you're good. Now the workbench disk, and yeah, look at that, we're booted up. So these aren't especially beautiful examples, but we do have two fully working Amiga 1000s. And yeah, goes to show once again, you can still make a killing on eBay. Two Amiga 1000s for $200, and I'm probably going to sell them for $600-700 total. Mission accomplished. So a guy who found me on YouTube contacted me. He was moving out of the country and needed to get rid of a stash of Commodore computers and accessories that he'd had in a closet for decades. And I think I paid him $300 or $400. I don't remember exactly, plus shipping labels probably. And it's all arrived. I don't remember exactly what it entails, but we're going to find out right now. All right, and here we are unpacked. Looking pretty good, looking pretty good. Not bad at all. We have a couple 64s, missing a few keys, kind of, as is condition. A couple 1541 disk drives. These are the nice ones with the latch. Those are definitely desirable. We have a 1581 3.5-inch disk drive for the 64, 128. These are very desirable. They go for $200-300, 3.5-inch disc. People definitely want those. Over here, we have a couple old modems. We have a video capture cartridge for the 64. We have a really nice third-party Commodore 64 power supply. These are great because the old ones that came with them are starting to fail and cause damage to the machines. This is a tank mouse for the 64 and 128. It's a 1351. It's not for the Amiga, although it looks like it could be. We have the Commander 22 tape drive. Never seen one of those. We have a beautiful amber monitor. I love amber so much better than monochrome. It's just a really cool look. I wish that color scheme could have been what the Commodore 64 had instead of what it did have. And then the star of the show, a Commodore 128D, fully working, gorgeous machine with keyboard. These so often are missing the keyboard. So this guy will go for about $600, I would say. The monitor, maybe 60, 80. These guys, 75 each, 75 each, 300, and then miscellaneous. So yeah, we're definitely looking at a solid $12, $13, $1,400. So I tripled my money with this, and I'm very happy. I got an order for an NTS Dreamwriter 325, so I need to get one of those together. The Dreamwriter is a cool little basic language computer from the 90s. I did a video on it a while back if you want the whole rundown. I came across a large stash that I refurbish regularly for people who want to buy them for like $100. The problem is I'm down to the last 20 or 30, and they all have terrible keyboards, all with like a dozen stuck keys. It's impossible to know why they're like this. It's usually the left side of the keyboard for some reason, and it's just an awful key mechanism. They have this cylinder thing that goes into a hole on the keyboard, and any kind of friction at all causes the key to stick, and it's hard knowing what the friction is because it's nothing visible. I used to try to fix one key at a time, but it's like playing whack-a-mole and issues come back. So these days I take the entire keyboard off to remove any schmutz that may be on there, and then I use Q-tips to brush them out. Like I said, the enemy here is invisible, and it's not like you're actually seeing any gunk, so it feels like you're just going through the motions. But I've done this several times now, and I've only had to do a couple minor touch-ups afterwards. I buy 99% alcohol. You can get a gallon pretty cheap on Amazon, like $50, but I water it down to 90% because I find that 99% evaporates and causes my face to melt, while 90% is more solidly in liquid form, and it stays on what you're working on. Anyway, when everything is clean, I use another Dreamwriter as a reference, because even though we type on keyboards 13 hours a day, for some reason we've never memorized the keyboard, and then I let the whole thing dry for a couple hours. That's just step one, though. Next, I put a basic ROM that my friend Steve burned into the socket on the underneath. 90% of Dreamwriters out there come with an old ROM that doesn't support BASIC, so it's important to update them, otherwise a Dreamwriter is really just a word processor with no programming ability. Then I use some clippers to cut a battery terminal out of a piece of metal so that I can use AA batteries. Dreamwriters came with rechargeable battery packs that had a spot welded battery terminal attached, so when those died and were thrown out, Dreamwriters had no battery terminal and therefore no capacity to use AA batteries. To this day, most Dreamwriters on eBay are considered non-working because people try AA batteries and they don't power on. Next, I replaced the coin cell battery, which holds temporary settings. Make sure to use a brand name that actually works and has not been sitting on Amazon shelves for 37 years. I learned that one the hard way. Then I put back the plastic covers, test the keys, and I type a simple program in BASIC, so when the buyer turns it on, it shows an automatic and personalized greeting. I mean, how cool is that? And that's my Dreamwriter refurbishing process. It's such a great little computer, it's intuitive to use, and it's quick and responsive even at 30 years old. I feel great about having this little niche product and being able to get a few of them back out onto the road. You know, it's funny. Sometimes it's something selling that finally makes me do the video on that thing. Such is the case with this VIC-Switch here. I bought it for $79 like a year ago, and it just sold for $500. So I've got to ship it tomorrow, so I need to finally do the video that I've always planned on doing because I'm not going to have it anymore. So yeah, 500 bucks. So what is this? This is an early 80s serial switch for old Commodore computers like the 64, 128, VIC-20. It lets you connect multiple computers to multiple printers and disk drives, that sort of thing. Kind of a cool device. So yeah, I sold it as is, although I did verify this light comes on when you connect it to power. But I'm going to go actually test it now and see if it really works. Okay, we have two computers set up. There's a Commodore 64, there's another Commodore 64, and here is the VIC-Switch. The 1541 disk drive that I'm using between the two is connected to the out, and then the two computers are connected to the ins. And what I'm going to do here is load a directory on both computers to see if it accesses the drive. And this one is, and we'll get that directory there. Cool. And so now we're going to do the same thing with this one. And I'm going to show you the light. That's the light for the disk drive that illuminates while it's being accessed, and that worked. So we'll get that directory. Awesome. So they both can access the drive. Next, we're going to give it a harder test of loading the same program at the same time to see how it handles two computers trying to access at the same time. Program here called menu. And so I'm going to hit return as quickly as I can on both machines. Just hit it on the second one. This one is searching and loading. So this one is ahead. I just ran the program there. Loading. And there we go. So it worked. This computer waited in line for this computer to finish, and then it started loading. I have to say that while this is successful, I did try several other applications, and most of them failed in this test. Most of the time, the first computer successfully loaded the program, and then the second computer just kind of hung out and didn't exactly crash, but kind of froze in some sort of state. So I don't want to give the impression that this is completely seamless. But for the most part, the VIC-Switch seems to be working as advertised. It would be great to try it with multiple computers and a lot of disk drives, but I don't really have the bandwidth or the patience to do that. It would be fun to use a GoTech with this. Imagine using this to connect 5 or 6 Commodore 64s to a common SD card. That could be really cool, or it could be a massive train wreck. I'm not really sure. But anyway, there you have it. There's the VIC-Switch. Get one last look at it before I pack it up and ship it away. This is a pretty cool Alienware laptop that came to me from a cell phone store that collects stuff for recycling. Missing a key, got it here, a few screws. I can't power this on because it does have a proprietary power outlet. I tried using a USB-C charger, didn't seem to make a difference. So either I don't know, either it's not meant for USB-C or it's dead. So anyway, obviously it was stripped. The hard drive is missing, but it includes the caddy, which is nice. RAM goes here. SSD goes there. So pretty impressive machine. It sold for $100 and I'm now shipping it out. It's funny with Alienware. There's stuff that's worth a ton of money and there's stuff that's worth $100. So I guess you just have to know the different models to know one from another. Well, that's it for today. Milo and I will see you again next Wednesday with more retro nonsense. Thanks for watching.